Welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Barbara Myers. Today's show is being taped at the National Convention of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, being held in San Francisco. On this show, we'll focus on recovery from mental illness in a special kind of community, a therapeutic farm community. Our first guests are Don and Lisbeth Cooper, co-founders of CooperRiis, a therapeutic community for people recovering from mental illness. Don is a retired financial executive, and Lisbeth is a retired apparel industry executive. Welcome, Don and Lisbeth.
Hi, Barbara.
First, I'd like to talk about a background about therapeutic farm communities. Can you tell us what a therapeutic farm community for people living with mental illness is? What's the history, that kind of thing?
For us, a therapeutic community is an environment that and a community where residents who are struggling with mental illness come and live 24/7 with staff who also live in the community, and they participate in job activities, work activities in the farm. They eat together, they play together, and they work on their recovery together. It's a broad community, just like a town might be, and much of the activities that are involved are engaged in activities which are necessary for the community to function.
Who lives on the farm?
At CooperRiis, we have the capacity for 36 residents at one time, and in that location there are 42 committed staff, and about half the staff live on the committee as well, in the community as well. Many of the staff have families, small children, as well as the spouses, and in many cases both spouses are employees of CooperRiis.
What kinds of clients do you have?
We are licensed for 18 and up, and our oldest resident has been 72, and the youngest has been 18 and 1 day. And they come from all walks of life and from all over the country. And we always say that mental illness is very much an equal opportunity play area, because there's no discrimination there. It can affect anyone at any age, really. We accept people who have practically any diagnosis of a mental health condition, be it schizophrenia, mood disorders, thought disorders, and borderline personality disorder, bipolar, you name it. And there's never a clear line. It's usually, the diagnosis one could come in with 4 or 5 diagnoses, but the main reason is that people come willingly and freely, because we are not a lock-up facility. We're based on a farm. Mm-hmm. And it's also, you cannot recover if somebody forces you to go there. If somebody tells you got to stop smoking now, well, you're not going to stop smoking because of that. Same thing like if your parents says you got to go to bed, well, you go to bed when you want to go to bed. So people must come freely. Sometimes they're a little coached by family members to come, because it's not an easy thing to accept that you have a mental illness. A lot of our residents also have some addictions in their history, and it's very typical to self-medicate when you first start. When the mental illness is coming on, you don't know what's going on. You're in pain, so sometimes you'll reach for a bottle or drugs or whatever, but it has to be a secondary diagnosis, and they have to be clean for at least a month before they can be accepted into our program. And if they're not, 10 miles from us is a wonderful addictions place similar to ours. It's called the Pavilion International, and we partner with them, and sometimes when a person comes and we feel they really need to go there before we can take them, and we get a lot of their clients as well, so it's a wonderful partnership.
What kinds of experiences are available on a farm community that one might not get in a more conventional mental health setting?
I think the key element of strength that a community-based recovery program has is is the relaxed, safe atmosphere where people can relax in their illness. They don't feel threatened. They get support throughout the community for what they can do rather than being discouraged and reminded about what they can't do. And it creates a place where through that relaxation and comfort, you can then approach them with recovery understandings. And that's what recovery is recognizing that that they have an illness. It doesn't define them. It's not that they are a schizophrenic. It is that they are a person that has a wealth of talents and experience that happens to have a mental illness. And in that context, people can, once they are relaxed in the community, then you can approach them with, I guess, what professionals would call psychoeducation, which is to understand the elements of their illness, understand the mechanisms that can be used to help them to function at a higher level in their lives, to understand when a crisis is developing, and so rather than just let it escalate so that they have to be hospitalized, they can understand for themselves what coping mechanisms would help them stabilize things, and they become basically more and more independent.
How long is the stay?
Obviously hard to respond to because everybody is different, but we have averages and we have data. The average stay is about 7.5 months. Some people stay 30 to 60 days and move on, and we try to limit the stay at CooperRiis to 3 years, and in about 2 instances that has in fact occurred. But most people stay around 7 to 8 months and then move on to a more independent environment. At CooperRiis, with a staff ratio of more than 1 to 1, obviously it's a very supported environment. As people recover and become more independent, they learn how to manage their medications. Then they are candidates for our community program or graduate program, and CooperRiis owns 6 houses which have live-in staff, and so people can leave CooperRiis and move into a house environment where the one staff equivalent person, because it's 24/7, it may take 3 staff to fulfill that, but one staff equivalent for 3 or 4 residents, so it's more less concentrated support, but the support is always there.
Tell us what led you to start CooperRiis.
Maybe we should also clarify, he's the Cooper and I'm the Riis, and that's where the name came from. Okay. So, ever since I was 3 years old, all I ever wanted to do was be a fashion designer. And when I finally came to New York in my very early 20s, and I realized this is the place I could do that. And one of the classes I had to take was in window display and merchandise display. And I remember doing this wonderful project on fashion and color and furniture. And there was another woman in the class, and her project was on mental health issues. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard about. Because here we are studying fashion. Well, fast forward. Little did I know that someday that was going to be the focus of my life. And my youngest daughter, in high school, life became very difficult, and I initially thought that this was just, teenage rebellion, high school stuff going on, and mental illness does not happen in typical nice middle-class families. It happens to those other people. Well, it happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us and the worst of us and whatever falls in between. And life became very difficult. And she would run away, and we would try and get help, and she would refuse help, and it was probably the worst years of my life. And I know I'm just one of many, and the stories I hear from other families, but it finally got so bad, and I did not know what to do. I didn't know where to turn, and everywhere I was always, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it there was never everybody there to help me. And it was my fault. I was always being accused of having caused that. This is your typical. And I had a former brother-in-law, and he was a psychologist. And I pleaded with him, can't you help me? And he said, well, you know you need 2 psychiatrists to get to the hospital. And I said, I do. And I got one, helped me to find another one. And he refused to get involved. And it was like that everywhere I turned. 2 of her friends finally got her into a hospital. She stayed there, went into a group home, went away, found her. As a matter of fact, we lived in New York, and there was a while, I think I traveled to California 4 times a month trying finding her and living under a bridge, Grateful Dead concerts, drugs, lice infested, you name it. Kept bringing her back home, getting her into treatment, but there was also that rebellious streak going on, and there's also some of the places she was in. Frankly, I would have run away too. It was awful, and the way she was treated, and the way not all the patients were treated, the way they were spoken to was just absolutely disgraceful. Yeah. And this went on for 10 years. And the last time in 1999 she was hospitalized, the same old. And then I developed such a personal disdain for social workers to this day. When at CooperRiis, when we hire a social worker, they won't tell me. And it's a wonderful profession, however, it's also often misguided. But so for, you get this call from a social worker saying that we would like to discuss this discharge plan, and your heart just sinks because you've been in the ER for about 8 or 10 hours getting your family member admitted. And where to? Well, back home. No, that's not an issue. That's not practical. Well, we don't have any other options. And I remember I said, what about the public mental health? And they said, well, you have to contact them. And I called them and I said, do you like to get my daughter into one of your group homes? I understand you have beds. And say, yeah, we have beds open, but she has to be in the system first. And I said, okay, how do I get her in the system? Well, she has to apply in person. Well, she's in a hospital. Well, then when she gets out. But I said, she can't get out because she doesn't have anywhere to go. And this is when I just said, this is it. The straw has broken the camel's back. This has been going on for over 10 years now, 12 years. So I went home and I told Don, we're going to do something. And he said, yeah. He said, no. We're going to build a place where people can truly heal. It's based on hope and purpose and being part of it. And it's going to be a place that if we needed it, we would want to be there. We would be comfortable be there. And I said, and it's not going to be one of these halfway houses that smell with broken down furniture, the springs come up, you know where. This is going to be a place with dignity and respect. And it took a while to get him to turn around, but, when I started giving him ice cream for breakfast and lobsters when at demand and whatever else he wanted in between, and he finally realized this is good. Maybe this will stay if I keep it up. But so that was, started in October. By December 18, we flew up to Massachusetts and Vermont because my daughter had been in a place called Spring Lake Ranch during these 10 years. And it was the only place I ever started seeing a glimmer of hope because there the focus was on purpose, community, and getting better. And I actually thought at that point that things was going to be turning around, but it would take a few more years. So we found a place, we bought it, and I still remember it. It was on the 1st of May, and we stood on the outside, and we had just signed the papers, and we said, what the blankety blank have we just done? Bought a one-down horse farm. We don't have a clue what we're doing. We haven't raised any money yet. We took our own savings and bought the farm, and I always tell my other children when they come to visit, come out and look at your inheritance. It's sitting out here in Mill Spring in Polk County on 80 acres. But we got our architects involved, and we started working with the IRS, and boy, did we learn a lot. Had we not been so naive, I don't think it would ever happen. Had we known we were in for, we thought we could do it for $5 million. It cost 10. We thought we could do it in 18 months. It took 3 years, and so on and so on. Everywhere we turn on, why can't we just do that? Because I don't know. Don, do you think if we had known what we were in for, we would have done it? I think sometimes being dumb and naive is what. Otherwise, you would never do it because you realize the obstacles are just so high.
What if someone wanted to start such a community elsewhere? How would they go about doing this?
Well, there's a lot of first steps. I get a lot of calls, and people say, we have 20 acres, we'd like to build it. And my first question is also, are you on city sewer and water? Because otherwise your septic or sewage treatment is going to cost you up to $500,000. So that's usually, and I know it sounds, it's not really what we should be telling people, but that alone, that's usually my first question. Then we start asking, how serious are you? And what is your purpose? And what do you foresee it? And then we go into, we are there to help them. We are there to guide them. We don't have the strength to come to California and build one, but if anyone out here want to build, we'll be there in a heartbeat.
How has this experience enriched your lives?
It's actually incredible. The fact that here we are at this stage in our lives creating something that we had no clue we were going to be doing earlier in our lives, that is in effect helping vulnerable people find hope and a future in their lives is so rewarding. We had never built a nonprofit before, neither Lisbeth nor I, and we started with a blank sheet of paper. But as it evolved and as we brought together a very creative staff that are on the forefront of thinking professionally with advanced degrees in psychology, and our psychiatrists are bringing to the table new ways of looking at mental illness, and it fits with our model and our mission, which is a caring approach to dealing with people's vulnerabilities. But to see somebody come to CooperRiis who can't compose a written sentence 6 months later being editor of our campus newspaper is incredible. Or people forget who they are, and people who come who are so distant from their strengths and so attuned to their vulnerabilities, it's distressing. But then when you watch over time, as they relax and as they begin to look constructively at what they can do, it's so rewarding to see someone begin to pick up their violin again and play beautiful music, or to play Native American flutes, which has become a craze at CooperRiis. Everybody is making their own Native American flute, or playing the drums. We have
And playing the flute.
And playing the flute. So as inherent talents are resurfaced, people begin to regain their hope and regain their self-esteem, and to find purpose in their life. That to me is just so rewarding and satisfying.
Thank you very much, Don and Lisbeth, for being on the show.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Dr. Norma Kirby, whose daughter Catherine is a current resident at CooperRiis. Dr. Kirby is a retired ear, nose, and throat surgeon. Welcome, Dr. Kirby.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
I understand that your daughter picked out the CooperRiis community to recover in. Can you tell us something of the circumstances?
Yes. She was friends with Don and Lisbeth and knew about what they had done. And she has had problems for many years, intermittently. And she had an acute episode and went into a short-term acute unit and then needed to go someplace long-term. And so she talked to Elizabeth, and they were able to help her be there.
What is the family's involvement with the program while your daughter has been at CooperRiis?
As much as possible, we are in touch because I live about 3,000 miles from her. It's a little difficult to go for a weekend, but I have been there for a family weekend, which is wonderful. And we email several times a week. We talk on the phone pretty regularly, several times a week. We do a teleconference about every 2 to 3 weeks with one of her therapists. So, and I also write to her regularly, and she writes to me from time to time.
That's wonderful.
But mainly the emails have helped tremendously.
Yes, yes. As a physician, what is your opinion of this program as compared with other programs for recovering from psychiatric illnesses?
I would say it's a little short of a miracle. My exposure to psychiatric institutions had been county hospitals, the ones connected with medical schools or where I was studying, and also I did a summer as an extern with U.S. Public Health Service hospital for neuropsychiatric patients and addicts in Fort Worth, and that was an absolutely terrifying thing because the patients had so much problems. It was a lockdown facility, and so my exposure to psychiatric situation care had not been good at all.
Tell us what you hear from your daughter about what it's like of being a resident of CooperRiis.
May I read a statement?
Oh, please do.
CooperRiis has saved my life, and more than once. I am unbelievably lucky to have the opportunity to be a resident here. I have lived with mental illness for years. She's just had her 50th birthday, and have been given the time, therapy, community, and hope at CooperRiis that I will one day reintegrate as a fully functioning member of society. The environment of this healing farm community is one of sincere care and love. I have the opportunity to have time with my therapist daily if needed. No stone goes unturned at CooperRiis in our daily care, from the incredible therapist to the organic kitchen. I recommend CooperRiis to all with mental health issues. As I said earlier, CooperRiis has saved my life and could do the same for all of us who have mental health issues. And I do certainly believe that they have saved her life.
That's wonderful. What kinds of things does she do there while she's there? What happens in a typical day?
She gets up and walks with somebody on the staff almost every morning. They have a walking club, and she loves to walk. And it's also, I'm sure they talk in the process. The first thing in the morning, 5 days a week, is they get together for a group. Everybody, there are 36 total max there, and they talk about what's going on today, what the weather's going to be, what the possibilities are for the things to do, and what they need to do, and they affirm each other on a regular basis, which is wonderful. If you've had a birthday or something wonderful happened or whatever, they do that and affirm each other, and I think that's a fantastic way to start the day. There are 3 lodges, and so there are just 12 persons to a lodge plus a resident, so everyone has a private room and bath, which is great. And so then you get to have some privacy if you wish, or have people in or not. But the first thing that she did, which really surprised me tremendously, was that she worked in the garden. And that was for about 3 months, and a very different experience for her. And then during the day, they have assigned activities, and she works a lot in the art barn. She has made one, I'm glad y'all mentioned the flute, because she made a beautiful native flute for me that I have displayed in the living room where I live. And there's a lake that's safe, and they go swimming. Maybe it's a man-made lake, but she goes swimming at this time of the year and enjoys that. But there are animals on the farm. There are just a variety of things that can be done, but so that you have a lot of choices and that you have a lot of contact with staff and a lot of affirmation. She's a very outgoing person, and the weekend that we were there, just about everybody hugged her, and she hugged a lot of other people, but she's very, 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 very supportive group.
That's great. So I was going to ask you how you think that this experience has helped her mental illness so far. It sounds
I
like
think it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, really positive. And would you recommend something like this to someone else?
I would certainly do so. I would just hope that there was some way that we could get a national effort to build places like this. It's just wonderful.
what makes the difference? Why is this so effective as compared with other kinds of mental health treatment?
Well, for one thing, it's voluntary. And when you choose something yourself, I think you're much better about being able to work with people. The total affirmation that you get and the continuing exposure you get to other people who are affirming of you and that you trust, so that it's really better than most families. Most people say they came from dysfunctional families, and most did. Most all of us did. But it's the most warm and loving environment one could imagine. Plus, there's a lot of teaching because of her diagnosis of behavior personality disorder, borderline behavior personality disorder. She has helped when they've done presentations to staff. Everybody just seems to work so much in sync with each other, and there's so much time spent. It's not like you're in a hospital and there are 3 shifts and people are changing constantly and you don't know who they are and they don't know what your problems are. And so I think it's the love, the care, the planning, it's just such a warm and loving place. It would be hard not to feel better, I should think.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr.
You're very
Kirby,
welcome.
for being
I'm happy
with us.
for the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll leave you now with some resources and organizations that you might want to consult. There's an organization called the American Residential Treatment Association, or ARTA, www.arta-ne.org, and over 25 organizations are listed on their website, so take a look. On their website is CooperRiis in Asheville, North Carolina, and you see the website on your screen. Gould Farm, which was the first such community in Monterey, Massachusetts, and its website is on your screen. And then also Spring Lake Ranch, which is in Vermont's Green Mountains. I'd like to end with the words of the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.